Hello, everybody. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged. We're on episode 82. Today is Wednesday, July 10th. Hopefully you all had a nice and relaxing holiday week last week and weekend. And today I am excited and that we're bringing you Robert Keeler now with CEDIA. And I've known Robert for a long time. He's an industry veteran and an advocate for our industry and an advocate for all of you listening out there on all sides of the business, whether you're on the dealer side or the manufacturer side. And so let's go ahead and jump to it and bring in Robert, and let's say hello and get the conversation started. So, all right, let me get technology to behave here. There we are. What's up, Robert?
Hey, how you doing on this fine day?
I am super. It is a beautiful day here in sunny South Florida. And where are you coming to us from, Robert?
So, at 3 a.m. I was in Pittsburgh. At 7 a.m. I'm in Chicago, and now I'm in Minneapolis, the home base. So, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yeah, so today's been a long day already.
What time was your flight?
It's like 5 a.m. Yeah.
Oh, man. 5 a.m. flights. I don't miss those. I try not to do those when I can help it.
I try not to either.
But it does get you home quicker, and I guess that's a silver lining, right?
That is. In fact, it's interesting because my with this role, it's not so much Monday through Friday anymore. It's got some flexibility. Like Monday through Wednesday, and I can, I have a day trip here, 2-day trip there. So, but anyways, it is nice to be home.
Real quick, Robert. By the way, do you prefer Rob or Robert?
Both work. Both work. Yeah.
All right. Let me scan. I'm going to jump over here to Facebook and just make sure that, in fact, the interwebs are cooperating and we are streaming live. Good. So just give me one moment here.
Yeah, got to make sure that technology is working right.
Oh, man. And we're on the bleeding edge here, streaming live. And my audience knows sometimes it works and sometimes not so well. But it does look like we are streaming live here, and we have an audience starting to form, which is great. If you're out there, definitely say hello, give us a like or a comment, tell us maybe where you're coming to us from. And if you're listening to us on replay, don't be shy. You can do the same. Give us a like or a share or a comment. And if you have any questions for Rob live, type those into the comments, and I'll do my best to read those to him live, and we'll get his live response. So
nothing's off the table, I'd say too.
So. Nothing's off the table. You heard that straight from Robert, guys. So ask him the hard questions. Go for it. All right. So Robert, what were you doing out in Pittsburgh, by the way?
Actually, I was with the Powerhouse Alliance, group of distributors across the country, and they had one of their annual meetings, and I delivered the keynote speech yesterday morning. So little nerves. It was kind of funny. The friends of mine that were there were kind of giving me a little trash talking before I came on. So, oh yeah, it was classic. It was, but it was a great event. A great opportunity to literally chat with the people who help driving new business. From a distribution standpoint. The distributor channel of business is really gets a lot of dealers started, and today's established brands often started working with distributors solely, and it's just great to be part of that equation. And we had a good time and had some good conversation.
All right. So, Robert, a lot of our audience may or may not know your background. And so I always like to start with the background, and then we'll kind of bring it forward into your current roles and responsibilities at CEDIA. So if you could fill us in kind of, how did you land in this industry, and maybe what are some of the things you've done along the way?
You bet. Well, I guess my entire career has been in this industry from day one, and it's funny you said industry veteran. I'm not sure if that's code for been around the block once or twice, but I have. It's been a fun ride. I've worked with a number of companies, both established global entities like Pioneer Electronics for a number of years, Hitachi, and worked for some smaller companies, startups that. Focused on digital photo frames, internet-based photo frames, and market research. But I did start on the retail side. Going to college, I would do custom car audio, and spent a lot of time, building out some really high-end systems. I say I've sold grown-up toys my entire career, and it's been a fun ride. Pioneer Electronics moved me from San Diego to Minneapolis back in '99, and here it is. 20 years later? This fall will be 20 years in Minneapolis. I think it's time for me to head out, though. This last winter was pretty nasty, but
I was just going to add that back in 2000, I'm trying to think here. 2000, maybe it was early January of 2001. Lutron moved me to Minneapolis.
Okay. Yeah. We thought we'd only be here 3-5 years, but it is a great place. I can't speak highly enough of it. It's a phenomenal place to raise a family. And it's great if you're like me. Here I am. I'm mired in technology, so my escapism, to quote my escape time, my escape room is the great outdoors. So. Getting out, my son and I and my family, we do some trips where, it's no cell phone service, and if you're in trouble, you better have a sat phone, because you're miles from nowhere. But that's usually how I escape. But no, I've grown up in this industry, as an adult, and been through a number of roles. I had some leadership roles at Hitachi. BDI Furniture. I've done a few different things. Most recently was Vice President of Sales at Stewart Film Screen, and responsible for North American sales, and just trying to grow that business after Grant Stewart passed away and Mary Stewart took over. And anyway, so everything. Every experience along the way has really ultimately led me to be a great ambassador for CEDIA. And
what is your role and responsibilities? I know you joined. When officially did you join CEDIA?
The end of April. Like literally, I'm like 9 weeks in, and so it's still relatively new. But senior director, sales, sponsorships, and partnerships. And if people have seen stuff in the trades, it's my job is to help sell CEDIA, but more to ensure that our members see the value and get said value out of it. I joke here and there. I'm like, my job is to get abused by our members, to make sure that they're getting what they're looking for.
So are you the receiver now of the technology professionals that come to you with the question of why should I be a member of CEDIA?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I get it all. Are
you the punching bag?
I can be. I came on board as CEDIA, and I've how do I say this? Because certainly, I'm a ambassador and employee of CEDIA, but in terms of the organization, having sold off the trade show part, one of the things I'm trying to help people understand at this juncture is that CEDIA has always been the trade association. And if I talk to people and play a word game, I say, what does CEDIA mean to you? Most people will say it's the expo. And that's a good response, but the reality of it is it's a trade association that's designed to help rise the tide for all members and all vendors. It's let the rising tide floats all boats, and let the individual companies battle for their market share. You and Samsung and Sony and LG and Vizio, they're all going for it. My job is ultimately to help those companies find different ways or find different channels of which to reach out. Case in point, we're working with the design and build community, or we're trying to reach or help our membership improve upon their skill set in one way, shape, or form. And that includes manufacturers, reps, distributors, buying groups, and not just only the end dealer, but again, I think that even I'm still going through some of the learning curve of exactly what we have and what we can offer, and we're building out things on a constant basis. Our education curriculum is really the crux of things. So and when I say education, I'm talking about everything from boot camps for new employees to workforce development scenarios. In fact, now we're accredited for Indiana, which makes our workforce development program easier to spread out to other states. Because I know our industry is just plagued with how to find the right people, find staff, find people to carry on the work. But also, business development, how to improve your business, how to, certifications as well. It's kind of like, think of it as the opportunity to say, yes, I know what I'm talking about.
Just and I don't have the exact timing, but I want to, so I'll be approximate and then you can be exact. But approximately in the last year, CEDIA purchased the traveling show,
yes.
the
Yes.
tech summits.
Yep. So business and tech summits, Mark Chakowski and Frank White have developed that program over, I think, 12 years now. And the interesting thing is I've been involved with that as a manufacturer for probably 9.
You and I have seen each other at many of those events over the years.
Yeah, I jokingly say it's like I tell my kids I've got enough friends across the country that if they were ever to do a road trip, I could probably get them a couch to sleep on overnight. No, the business CEDIA purchased the Business and Technology Summit, and really, in essence, it's a grassroots local CEDIA event. We have sponsors that help support us, which, to be honest, we can't do anything without the industry sponsors. There's a cost to bear, and what's great is, the ROI of the event is really well. I mean, I saw it as a manufacturer, so for me, it was a no-brainer. Some companies choose to spend their money different ways. Like we've had people, evolve from, they participate and now they're focusing on bringing people to new facilities. But, I imagine they'll come back. But we have a large following, and it's 11, 12 cities. We'll expand a couple more this next year.
I know they entered Canada this past year, I believe.
We did. It was a phenomenal event. It just goes to show you that, again, this is one of those things where coming aboard CEDIA, I have to take responsibility for a number of things, and it's a shared responsibility. So, I mean, this is a team effort. Let's face it. But one of the things I come to realize in Canada is that they've been underserved. That marketplace is starving for attention. They are looking. I mean, there's a high propensity for people to be CEDIA members in Canada. And interestingly enough, I mean, we can talk about economics later, but in the U.S., housing starts are down. When literally the morning I'm walking into the meeting, I'm looking at the morning news, and they're telling the stat was Toronto housing starts are up 25%. And I'm like, what? I mean, that's just amazing. But it just goes to show that that segment of business is growing. We will add Vancouver to the list next year, so we'll have the
that'd be awesome.
Two sides, and we're also looking at another site too. I don't want to say too much more, I suppose, but we are looking at making it a little more encompassing, because let's face it, there's a lot of marketplaces out there. Canada's established. You got all everything. They're doing the same things that dealers in the U.S. are doing. It's no different. So it's time to pay some attention to them.
Now, one of the topics that I know is top of mind for you, I just back a couple of months ago, I was at a ProSource event and I saw Giles speaking, and it was
I think that was my second day.
Yeah, that was that was day 2 for you. at CEDIA. That's funny. And it's in particular about this concept that, we've had a really good run as an economy here in the U.S. For the last 10 years or so. You probably know these exact facts, but I'm going to just share my screen here, and I'm going to share something. I own some mutual funds with American funds, and they were just bought out by a company called Capital Group. And this is an email or a blog post they made about how to predict the next recession. And, they're talking about the U.S. coming out of a strong cycle. And here's another one that talks about, what is a recession, and, boom, the boom that happens after a recession. And then what is the length of time? So how do you see your role, and has CEDIA's role in terms of educating and preparing our industry as to what is likely happening? And then is it going to happen? And if so, when is it going to happen? Because I'm sure you have access to data that's maybe better than the average Joe.
Well, we use a lot of there is data that's available. We use the Federal Reserve data, and there's some other sources that we use. But yes, so I think that and that's something that's near and dear to us right now, because ultimately what I'm trying to do is help prepare dealers to think through and absorb what is potentially a recessionary time. I mean, I don't want to say it's happening, but it's due, and the data shows that it is due. I mean, so a couple of slides that I've been sharing. One of them is economic.
You sent me that deck, so let me attempt to get technology to behave. It actually jumped off my screen, so I'm going to try to add it back here. If you bear with me, and let's see.
Well, while you're doing that too, I can talk through that too. So, July, the month of this July marks the 121st month. Yeah, we're going to go back, go up a few slides. It's like
okay. Let me bring that up here. Oh,
there. One more. There we go. Expand. So right now, as of this month, the economic expansion of the U.S. is running about 121 months. And that makes it the longest on recorded history for the U.S. And all said and done, that's phenomenal. I mean, we're seeing unprecedented growth. Companies are expanding, companies are growing, but at the same time, you look at the historical data, and at some point in time, there's going to be a contraction. The contraction is a recession. In fact, the next slide beyond the expansion one is recession length. This last recession, I think it was dubbed the Great Recession, but that thing was just nasty. I mean, it was 18 months in length for recessionary. Most recessions don't last a year. They're only 11 months. With short ones, 6 to 8 months, but the average is only 11. And by the way, I do have to preface all this. I'm not an economist. I just kind of play one at my job a little bit. So, please bear that in mind. But the data that we get is from the Fed. So, please bear that in mind. But, it's, I guess what we're really trying to say is, prepare yourself for this short time. Yeah. Okay. So here's a slide that's on here. So this was Bloomberg in conjunction with Fed data. So you're saying there's a chance there's one coming, and I never want to get gloom and doom. I mean, trust me, my friends are like, if I'm in a bad mood, I'm off.
I don't want to go to this presentation.
Right. Exactly. Right. I mean, it's so when you get right down to it, we are due, but there's a couple different companies that have indicators. Forbes has 4 indicators that suggest a recession. On only one, the yield curve is in decline. Everything else is great. Unemployment, housing prices is up. Unemployment is all-time low. Although that one fluctuates like 0.1, 0.2, from month to month this last year. But by and large, that's still it's incredibly low. And, and the other thing is, I keep using that turn of phrase, but the indicators that would suggest that we are it's impending or imminent, they're not there. So, but I will
This
say,
one's interesting. The personal
yeah,
savings rate.
well, go back to the previous one, and I'll show you why it's so unique. So this slide shows two graphs. One of them shows your uh, disposable personal income. This is basically what you make, and the graph below it is your personal consumption. So as you look during the recessionary time, as we were coming out of the recession, the amount that what you earned versus what you spent, was greater. And now we're at a point now where I say this, this is where probably an economist could probably speak better, but basically we're almost spending what we're making. And there's all sorts of factors. Now, this is probably, John Q. Public. This isn't and I'm not going to use the 1%er term. I'm not, but this is like the 5%er. The people that are integrators typically do have a little more personal income, but this is mainstream USA. This is Fed data, so this is all encompassing. So go to the next slide, and you'll see this is just from 2015 to today. You're talking about six people in 2015. They were at, oh no, that's unemployment. We need to go back to, there was a personal savings rate next to one. Yeah, personal savings rate. So in 2015, we were saving on an average about 6.25% of our income. Today, it's less than 2.5%. So basically, out of $100, rather than keeping 6.25%, you're barely keeping 250. That's to me, that's kind of alarming. But I also think that there's other factors. Things are. Health insurance costs have gone up. There's other things that we've seen artificially.
And again, my interpretation, I think this is restating some of the points you just said. It's not that Mrs. Smith that would buy a $50,000 home theater. This is not necessarily her. She's not,
no.
If she has a net worth, she still has that net worth. It's that this national aggregated data is telling us there are some symptoms here that could lead to a pending recession, which has other ramifications for us as an industry.
Well, you look at it. This. I will say, I think my personal savings rate's a little higher. I do know that, but we're talking about some of the employees of our clients, of our businesses. If you get right down to it, that's mainstream. That's if you look at it from a different perspective, those are our employees.
I have a question that just got posted. Actually, there's been quite a few posts here. I'm going to throw it up on the screen here. Chris Gamble, one of our great listeners from the UK, he just posted, he said, could CEDIA EMEA do something similar? And it sounds like gathering this data or aggregating this data for Europe. Is that an option? Or
I don't know that one. That one I'd have to look into. And JJ, feel free to connect with me offline, because although that looks like Chris.
Yeah, that was Chris.
That was Chris. I'm not sure what data Europe would offer, but I believe that we can definitely take a look into sourcing some of that. I'm not sure what can be done of it, but
you did mention JJ, and JJ did comment. He says student debt, living above your means.
Great examples.
Yeah.
Well, I love that meme where it's like there's a picture of an older gentleman. And he's like, "Woohoo! I'm partying. I just paid off my student loans." It's. I look at my daughter. She's out of state tuition. If it wasn't for scholarships, she's not going where she's going. And not to put too fine a point on it. That's another thing. There's a couple things that are going on. You're starting to see some backlash from mainstream America. It's like, I'm tired of paying these costs that are just out of whack. I will have to follow up on that one, but there's a slide that I saw when I was doing my research of everything that was increasing in cost, inflation adjusted, et cetera, et cetera. Like things were rising 2 to 4%. Tuition was like 7, 9%, 10% a year. That's ridiculous, and you're seeing now a backlash. I think it was Apple and Google. They're talking about, we don't mandate that you have to have a degree anymore. And I saw that. I saw that headline. I started reading several articles. I'm it's exciting. I mean, that's because I think you are starting to see some of that backlash from those costs.
So now that we have our listeners maybe in with a bit of shock and awe of some of these data that are not looking great, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to know that what goes up comes down.
Yep.
And I think we all have been the receivers of an economy that's been very positive, at least I'll just say domestically here in the U.S.
Yep.
and likely broader in North America. What are, and there is a comment, I do have a question because I want to get on the flip side. How do you prepare for this? And what are some of the things to be mindful of from CEDIA's perspective? But let me just read a quick question that came in.
I think I see Chris's, and I think we can segue from that because when we start talking about where do we go from here? Okay, so this is data that suggests that we need to be mindful of our business a little bit and take a look at things. And one of the things that I look at is expanding your business opportunities, your outreach. Digital marketing is more important than ever before. I know I'm preaching to the choir here on this one, but I can't speak highly enough of that scenario. Looking at different categories that are more designer friendly and essentially what I'm really trying to get at is allowing you to get into the door or the design process sooner. I'll give you a great personal example, Ron. So at Stewart, I had a quote out there for basically a $60,000 screen. Okay. And finally the order comes in and it's like 9,000. I'm like, whoa, what happened? Where'd the other $50,000 go? Well, it turns out it was cost overruns of the construction, and that's ultimately, and because the AV side was on the tail end of the process, it literally was, I spent my money on appliances. I changed my fixtures out. I went with Carrara marble instead of a quartz product. So the AV budget gets squeezed, and what we're trying to do is help push dealers, integrators to be able to get in the design process sooner. Great categories to do that are shading and lighting. I know the buying groups have made a large focus on engaging with lighting firms. One of the stats that I heard, which really portends to the opportunity, is that now granted, I mean, some of it you got to take with a grain of salt, but let's face it, some of these are rooted in fact, and they're kind of evolved a little bit for sales process. But in commonplace, builders put in 50% of the number of lighting fixtures that they should be putting in. So if you're telling me that they put in 30 lighting fixtures, there should be 60. Lighting designers saying, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and if the dealer's on the selling side of that equation, now he has a vested interest in making sure that education's out there.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, these companies, you don't have to have a lighting designer on staff. I mean, you can use and abuse your manufacturer partners. They're the ones who are the pros at it and can help you become that pro. But you never have to go it alone. In fact, I always make sure that integrators, reach out and develop those relationships from a design perspective with the manufacturers. I'd never had any issue, sitting in on a design process, trying to figure out the right solution, and also you think about it too, if it turns out to be the wrong one, where can you have the ownership of, I don't want to say blame, but if I'm the one speccing in a screen or a shade or lighting fixture and I would do it wrong, I'm going to own it. As a manufacturer, if you're part of it, you're also going to own it. I mean, I've talked to some networking folks where they're like, they want to do like a day class. And this was actually born out of the Tech Summit idea. So I'm anxious to see how this folds out. But imagine as an integrator signing up for a day class on networking. And then once you complete it, you're talking about advanced replacement, guaranteed, no questions asked. Well, take care, because they're now in a different education process where it's more about, let's troubleshoot, let's work
let's
together.
Take care of that customer for life and now get into an ongoing service model for that customer versus a one and done sale.
Absolutely. So,
Rob, can you provide some color or detail? I mean, I am an advocate of the business development strategy where integrators go out into the community, into the architects' offices, into the interior designers' offices,
yeah,
into the builders' offices, and they, I'd say, in a pseudo impartial way, purely educate. And CEDIA makes this very easy. I mean, many years ago, I want to say probably close to 10 years ago, I became CEDIA a CEDIA outreach instructor.
Yep. Yep.
And
In fact, I guess I'm now certified. I went through that training. Samantha in our office, she does a great job at leading that. And no, it's a great way to now. Keep in mind when a COI, a certified outreach instructor, goes out into the public or the industry, we expect them to be brand agnostic, especially if you're a manufacturer. But come on, I mean, if you're working for Lutron or you're working for Stewart Film Screen, you know who you work for. But the point is that you can still make it brand agnostic, and you do the brand awareness. And because let's face it, not every brand has 100% solution. Okay, but there's smart people out there that you mentioned, get that customer for life. If I couldn't do something, I recommend something else, and that created my value or my company's value, because then they knew that when came time to exactly that, they didn't have to go anywhere else. They knew exactly what they were getting.
Well, if an integrator is setting these up in their community, they have the ability to get their foot in the door into offices that they may not otherwise get their foot into the door. And they're offering the entity, say the architectural firm, something very valuable, something they need, and that is the CEU.
Yes.
I have a page up on the screen. I think everyone can see it here. This may or may not be the best page. If there's another place, direct me there, Rob, and I'll go over there.
I think that might be, and there's some things that I may not know. So I think you're on the right direction.
Okay, so this is, I think, one of the really powerful capabilities that CEDIA brings any member, in that you now can attend this training, become certified, and now you can wear this badge, and you can go into our offices, and you're not there to sell your company per se. You're there to educate and offer these trade partners something they need. They have to have their CEUs in order to maintain their license, and CEDIA makes that possible.
Absolutely. And when you're the subject matter expert, they're going to come back to you for, questions and comments and, things. And, so, and we're doing what we can to help out. So Giles Sutton on the team as well. So his focus is really the design and build community. So again, we don't want to be in a situation where people have to go it alone. So we're trying to do what we can to help set the stage. And a great example was, now it's almost a month and a half ago, but I'm talking to an architect, and basically his comment was, "Yeah, I go to CES every year." I'm like, "Dude, I'm sorry, man, that's the wrong show for you." He's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "If you want a smart toothbrush, you go to CES. But if you want to talk about lighting fixtures, custom home fixtures, shading, integration into the home, you need to be at CEDIA, at the expo, or come to one of the business and tech exchange, business events." But something else I wanted to bring up, in that, much like, so how, I mean, let's face it, even the general public tends to know about CES in January, right, in Vegas. So to what CEDIA is to CES, okay, a different, a more design focused function of the consumer electronics industry, there is an equivalent on the architect side that a lot of people do not know about. Everybody talks about AIA, American Institute of Architects. Okay, so that's the CES equivalent for what I'm talking about. There is a CEDIA equivalent called CRAN, Custom Residential Architects Network. And that group of individuals, we're making significant inroads in communicating with them, so that we can further the cause to give that platform for COI integrators to go have those lunch and learns with those particular folks, because those are the folks that ultimately you want to connect with. Lunch and learns are still always, yep, there you go. Lunch and learns are going to be the great thing. Now, I'm kind of embarrassed by this. I can't remember the integrator's name. I actually was doing, a number of years ago, I was doing some dealer visits, and he was getting ready for a lunch and learn in his facility, and he's got the chair set up, and he's got a slide, a PowerPoint on, and the cool part about it, I loved it, was that the first slide was a beautiful shot of an interior space. And the next two slides were basically here. It was the same image, but the second slide said, first of all, it's like, welcome to the event, lunch and learn. The second slide still had the same photo, but it said, can you find all of the electronics in there? And, that was his entree into it, because his focus was integrators or interior designers and architects. And we have a pretty clear view of, never the twain shall meet sometimes, from a design perspective. But
JJ just posted a comment, Rob, and he's attempting to be controversial here. He says, I'm not sold on communicating with designers, architects, and builders. And then he goes on to comment, he says there's no loyalty. So what would be your rebuttal to that?
I get it.
That position?
I get it. And the thing is, I'll go back to the retail side of things. If you compete on price, someone will beat you by $1, and then that's not your customer. And that's unfortunately some of the scenario is that we get into pricing, and JJ's got the interesting thing is, somebody like JJ's got a value add. His business looks a lot different than other integrators. And there's a couple guys that I can rattle off, just the same, and that their value equation goes beyond price. And it's that old adage. It takes years to build loyalty, and you can lose that loyalty in 5 minutes saying the wrong thing. I think in this case, from an industry who has, I don't want to say no clue, but there's not a lot of interest in the AV component side of things from the design and build community, yet we're now mixing the two on a daily basis. I mean, my wife already knows my next house, she's like, what do you mean we're not going to have a light switch? Well, there'll be one light switch. I'll have like 6 buttons on it, or, they'll be timed. The shades will go up and down with the clock, all these things. And she's like, what? The tech will be there, but it's going to be hidden. It's going to be invisible. And I think the architects are always worried about how's it going to affect my design. I mean, here's a little side note. I spent 2 years studying architecture. Don't think I didn't see that, we're talking some serious snobbery. I mean, of course, the reason why I didn't do architecture is someone pointed out, it's like the only good ones are the dead ones. Well, when you think about it, all some of the best architecture, they were controversial at the time, and only over decades later their
work was respected decades later.
Exactly. So,
I'm going to throw us in a completely different direction here. And then, believe it or not, we've been speaking, I want to say almost 45 minutes.
It goes quite fast.
You blink and you do it. So, all right. So here's another question. Ted posted, he said, can you give us some insider info on the coolest things happening at CEDIA in September? Now, obviously, CEDIA sold the expo. But CEDIA, the trade organization, is at the CEDIA Expo. So maybe answer that from your perspective.
You know what? I wish I could, because I'm going to tell you right now, I love the bleeding edge stuff. I love it. I'd have to probably start poking around a little bit. But I do know that we've had some award submissions for CEDIA. I've been part of it. I mean, last year I was with Stuart when we got a Hall of Fame award for Stuart got a Hall of Fame award for the Director's Choice product that was 15 years old or 13 years old, and then literally the next day we were showcasing the next generation of Director's Choice. But I gotta believe that there'll be some more 8K focus. I'm anxious just as you are to see some of the new stuff, and because we've sold the expo, and we kind of keep a tight lid on new product introductions that come through us from an award submission. Some of it will have to be it would be the expo floor or the typical news outlets. But I think there's a couple integrators that we were talking about digital marketing, and there's a couple guys, and JJ's one of them, and the guys.
They did just post. They said the coolest thing happening is the digital ramble.
Right. But that's the value. That's the value add I'm talking about. That when we talk about digital marketing, in that it does take. I mean, I don't even want to begin to know how much time out of the day it takes JJ or the Montgomerys at time to out of Salt Lake to do a production, or Rob Scuba, one of the reps in New York, to produce content. And again, it goes back to original content, and that's what I think is the trend and the change, the sea change of what our industry is really going to propel itself into the next wave, in that people are consuming data at a voracious rate. I talk to people that listen to podcasts on they listen to things in the car. They're doing stuff. The days of sitting in front of the TV are gone. Okay, that was probably a little harsh, but point is that we probably watch less. I mean, we already know that the iPad is a direct threat to televisions and TVs. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I have a theater in my house, my kids would probably be watching Netflix on their computer just the same. But they'd rather go watch it on the big screen. But
Robert Chris is giving you a shout out. He says, "I love the energy that Robert Keeler brings." Yeah, baby.
What's that, Dilbert? Is it Dilbert? I don't know. You can't turn down awesome.
Can't turn down awesome. That's funny.
No, and that's the thing. It's
wow. Chris just posted. Their goal is 100 posts a day on social media.
Wow. You know what? And that's the thing. It's like, social
they have
media,
to be Gary V's disciples. That's like Gary V level of content creation.
Okay,
I don't even remotely approach that.
Well, I'm going to take that, and because this is a conversation I was having with somebody, in that there's so much content out there. What becomes clutter and what becomes useful, and that's going to be different for everybody, and that's why you still have to create that digital content, because you're more of an expert on this than I am, but paid search is easy. Just write a check and you can rise. But the best stuff is your original creation. It's your original content. That's the part that's going to stand apart, and I don't know. It's just, I'm preaching to the choir.
The world is different today, and the exciting thing for all of us is it's going to keep changing, and how to communicate and how to be heard is ever evolving. And
yeah. I mean, it takes, it depends on who you talk to. I mean, it used to take 3 or 4 touches to reach somebody. Then it moved to 5, and now I think it's up to 7 touches, where you have to do it differently. So whether it's a social media content, it's an email blast, and here's the hard part. The hard part is the actual visit face to face, and the phone call. I mean, developing those relationships personally beyond the digital media side. There's a couple people who have commented, I've gotten to know them personally, and so they know who I am, what I'm about. I know what they're about. So, it makes it easy for me to joke shill for them, because I know what they're doing firsthand.
Speaking of which, I'm going to shamelessly plug, if you aren't following One Firefly on Instagram, go to Instagram and look us up. Robert, do you follow One Firefly on Instagram? If not, you will now.
I believe I do. Well, here's the thing. I'm definitely on the older clientele, so
you're not an Instagrammer. You're not on Insta every day.
No. Actually, you know what I do? I'm not on Instagram, but I look at a lot of stuff. I mean, I have a voracious appetite to see what's out there.
Our
The stuff.
industry is coming on hot on
Mhm.
Instagram. If you think
Yep.
about the
Oh, absolutely.
photography and the power of the image and the video from the amazing
Oh,
installs that our industry is doing every day, and the fact that the content is not only interesting to look at, but it's interesting to see the process from beginning to end.
yep.
And it's my opinion. I'd love to hear the folks listening or watching live to hear their opinion. But I think Instagram is really a new frontier for our industry. Like you, Robert, you've been around. You're not an active Instagrammer. Well, what's happening is there's a whole generation of millennials that are.
Mhm. Yep.
And
Oh,
I'm not a millennial, unfortunately. I'm Gen X, but I was late to Instagram as well, personally. And
well,
when Firefly was late, we only joined in September.
well, here's the
So
thing for me. It's not that I don't necessarily I don't post on it, but I mean I search through design. I search through installations. I mean, I'd follow some of these installers, but you know what? When they're like minded, I'm looking through them, and I'm evaluating. And that brings up a good point. And you and I talked about this a number of months back, and that from a content perspective, I would urge people to take professional photographs, hire a pro, and if the cost is too much, ask for partnership from your vendors.
I'm going to answer that. The cost isn't too much. They just need to increase their marketing budget.
Well, and the reality is, I'm not talking about photos on the last installer leaving the facility, leaving the install after you commissioned it. The ladder closed off. Oh, I got to take some photos with my iPhone. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, having a photographer who knows lighting. I mean, hire, talk to your favorite realtor. I mean, let's face it, we all know a realtor or two. They need to take photographs of the interior. Find a realtor that's a friend of yours that has great photos, and grab that photographer and take some pictures.
That's funny. I got the gang here now just dropping the names of integrators around the country here. There we go. Hot as rappers.
Yep.
All right. I don't know what that means, Chris, but I'll post it. Why not?
Right.
What else? We got Stealth Acoustics here throwing us some love. They said, if you care about your client's business at all and their website is iffy, do not hesitate to help your partner by sending them to One Firefly. Man, I love the guys at Stealth Acoustics, the guys and the girls. I love that whole team, that whole company. That's fantastic.
So you bring up a good point, though. I mean, that's this industry. I always say it's like, if I don't know someone, it's just because I haven't met them yet. I mean, it's I've been doing this for a long time. A lot of us have. It's fun. I mean, God forbid I had to get a job in some other business sector. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be as fun. I mean,
there's a reason I've been here 20 years, and hopefully I'll be here another 20 years, God willing. But it's. Why leave? We get to play with toys all day and talk about toys and have fun.
I tell you, one of my favorite moments was actually at a business exchange. It's a great success story. Integrator brought a client in, and we were showing a high-end projector, a high-end source, and a high-end screen. I'll leave the names out. And there was a moment in time, in the sales process, when you see the client's eyes roll back, glaze over, they're like, "Yeah, I'm done," right? I step in and I go, "Hey, do you want to see something you haven't seen in quite some time, unless you actually saw it in the theater?" He's like, "What?" And I teed up Lawrence of Arabia on Kaleidoscape. Okay, I'm giving one of them away. And I teed it up, and next thing you know, we're watching it for like 20 minutes, and it turns out that he knows the industry. So he's pointing out little things here and there that are just speaking to him. And then he turns to the integrator and goes, "I'll take it." I'm literally like, his finger, I'll take it. Everything. And the integrator's like, "What do you mean?" It goes, "All three pieces. We're done." I mean, literally, we sold I think it was $160,000 screen, a projector, a $50,000 screen and a Kaleidoscape all in one fell swoop. Just because we spent a little extra time showing somebody a little different, right?
Back to that adage: customers at all levels buy with emotion and justify with facts. So if you strike that emotional chord in the right way, magic happens, and you stop selling and take their money.
Exactly.
Robert, it was awesome having you on, buddy. And
Cool. Thank you.
Congratulations on joining CEDIA. I know the industry is thankful that you're there, and I think you could do a lot of good in spreading the love and the good word. And I'm happy for you. So how can everyone get in touch with you? What's the best way if anyone wants to talk to you directly?
Honestly, the best way is email. Keeler, RKEELER @CEDIA.org. So RKEELER @CEDIA.org.
All right, I'm gonna throw that up on the screen. We'll do something like this.
Oh, that's it. Bingo.
Is that how to find you? All right. So if you're out there and you want to learn more about CEDIA, or you want to rave to Robert about how much you love CEDIA, or if you have questions about value proposition, he's your man. And
I try. I do what I can. I work for you.
That's
literally
awesome. Hey, man, One Firefly has been a proud member of CEDIA for our 11 years in business. So
very good.
From day one. Robert, thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much. Have a great week and enjoy yourselves.
Awesome. All right, gang, there you have it. The one and only Robert Keeler, industry veteran, CEDIA advocate and frontman. And it was great to have him on the show. If you like this content, again, please like and/or comment. And if you feel so inclined, share this out to the world, and it'll be greatly appreciated. So on that note, I will see you next time. And thanks for joining me here on episode number 82 of Automation Unplugged. Thanks, guys.